Chapter 11. I wake up, totally lost. Where the heck am I? What just happened? The room's all white, like a blank page. I'm so disoriented. My mind is a haze, struggling to piece together the fragments of memory that feel just out of reach. I blink rapidly, forcing myself to concentrate on my surroundings. I sit up, and a pain lances through me, sharp and insistent, anchoring me back to reality. It's then that bits and pieces start coming back. The test, the attack, the sound of someone's neck snapping. The room, clinical and impersonal, slowly comes into focus. The white walls, the sanitized smell, the glass of water on the sideboard, they all start to make sense now. I'm in the infirmary, recovering from the injuries sustained during the test. But it's not just the physical wounds that ache. It's the haunting images from that day that weigh heavily on my mind. The ache in my body's bad, but the memories are worse. The sharp sensation of Terran's weapon piercing my skin, waves of terror down my spine. It was a harsh reality, not the deceptive veil of a nightmare, but a gut-wrenching truth. And then there was Jack. His penetrating gaze seemed to unveil souls, the raw force evident in each of his actions, reaching its climax in that final and horrifying moment, the undeniable sound of a neck snapping. My mind is caught in a whirlwind, a storm of confusion, struggling to reconcile the Jack who saves me with the one capable of such cold, merciless violence. The contradiction is terrifying. What will happen to him now? I can't help but wonder. Will I even see him again? A part of me is terrified at the thought, yet another part is inexplicably drawn to him. I lay back down, trying to make sense of it all. My head spinning. The events that unfolded were beyond what I could have ever anticipated. The line between protector and aggressor blurs, leaving me to grapple with feelings of fear, confusion, and an unsettling fascination with the man who saved me, yet brought death in the same breath. What does that make him? A savior, or something more menacing? The infirmary's so quiet, it's suffocating. It's like the walls are closing in on me. The whole thing's a mess. The events that unfolded surpass anything I could have imagined. The line between protector and aggressor blurs, leaving me grappling with feelings of fear, confusion, and a disturbing fascination for the man who saved me but brought death in the same breath. What does this make him? A savior or a killer? An angel or a demon? Hours have passed since I first woke up. I'm jolted from my thoughts as Clara rushes in, her face etched with worry. Relief washes over her when she sees me awake. "Eva, I was so worried," she exclaims, her voice a mix of relief and concern. I muster a reassuring smile. "Yes, I'm all right, Clara," I say, trying to ease her worry. As she sits beside me, Clara shares the latest development. Commander Hask, informed by Vega and Miles, has disqualified the test. They said it deviated too far from its intended parameters. It won't count for any of us. She laughs bitterly. Removed from the initial parameters, what a good joke. After a moment, Clara takes a deep breath, worry etched on her face as she carefully chooses her words. I don't know him very well, but I imagine he must be completely devastated. He must feel terrible, she murmurs. The room seems to close in on me as Clara's words sink in. He saved me, it's true, but the violence he displayed, it was indescribable. He took Terran's life with his bare hands, without a moment's hesitation. His actions were mechanical, almost routine. It made me dizzy, the unsettling feeling that this wasn't the first time for him. My voice fades, unable to articulate the inner turmoil. Should I be afraid of him? I whisper, more to myself than to her. She reaches for my hand, offering silent support. But I also see the worry in her eyes, a veiled fear she's trying to hide. I don't know what to think, she finally says. I wasn't there. He protected you, but be careful. There's something different about him, something dark. Her words echo within me, fueling my own doubts and fears. I know she's right. I hesitate, the words catching in my throat. I'm a mess, completely lost, Clara. My gaze drifts away, lost in the ordinariness of the wall. My head is a mess. I'm terrified of what I saw, of the raw violence that lies within him. And yet, my heart races every time I look at him, every time I think of him. This confession tears me apart, releasing a burden, but leaving behind a painful confusion. I no longer know who he is or what I feel for him. Clara's expression shifts, her eyebrows furrowing in a mix of worry and exasperation. "Eva, you're insane," she says, her voice laced with concern. "You just barely escaped a life-or-death situation, And now, like an addict chasing the next adrenaline rush, you're heading right back into danger. She pauses, her words heavy with warning. Jack is dangerous. He's playing with fire, and you won't just get burned, you'll be consumed. You can't even begin to imagine the corpses he's hiding. He's a weapon you can't control, let alone tame. Her words resonate with truth, yet they do little to quell the turmoil within me. A part of me yearns for more of this man who's become such a central part of my life in the academy. Clara, I need to know more about him, I say, a newfound determination in my voice. Can you find out anything? Maybe your parents with their connections or existing records. Something about his past? Clara's gaze meets mine, a complex interplay of hesitation and determination etched into her features. I'll see what I can do, she murmurs, her voice a quiet blend of promise and caution. But you need to stop chasing after him, Eva. Jack's past, it's a tangled web, possibly far more intricate and dangerous than you realize. I nod, grateful for her support, yet anxious about what she might uncover. He was deported from the American territory after his parents died, I add, hoping the detail might help in her search. Clara nods slowly, her brow furrowed as she digests the information. Deported? That's unusual. There must be more to his story than just a family tragedy. She shifts closer to me, her features softening with concern. Tell me everything you know about Jack. Every detail might help find more. I take a deep breath, the sterile scent of the infirmary mixing with my growing anxiety. He's always been reticent about his past. All I know is that he was moved to Europe when he was 8 and was adopted not long after that. Clara inhales deeply, steeling herself with a newfound resolve. Okay, I'll make some inquiries, she asserts, her voice steady but laced with a note of caution. Just keep in mind, Eva, whatever I dig out, it might not be the answers you're hoping for. We sit in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. The revelation of Jack's dark past terrifies me. Yet, I yearn to understand him, to truly know him. Despite everything, I can't help but worry about him. The looming shadow of the dire consequences he may face hangs heavily between us. The disqualification of the test seems almost trivial compared to the gravity of what might happen to Jack. His actions, while saving me from a graver injury or worse, have now put him in the crosshairs of the Academy's strict disciplinary measures. As Clara leaves, promising to keep me updated, I'm left alone with my thoughts. I lie back, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. What will happen to Jack? What does this mean for us? The questions echo in the silence, unanswered, as I drift into a restless sleep. The door creaks open, and I see Jack standing there. Relief washes over me as I see him. He's here, not locked away or worse, which must mean things are okay, right? There's a detached air about him, his customary unflappable demeanor firmly in place. But his eyes, usually so guarded, briefly flicker with something emotional as they settle on me. Hey, you're awake? He asks softly. Yeah, I reply, still feeling a little dazed. Jack, thanks for your help out there. I breathe out, a mix of relief and lingering worry in my voice. But Clara said there could be consequences for, what happened? He steps in, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Consequences? He sounds genuinely unaware, his brow furrowing slightly. I haven't heard anything, but whatever it is, I'll deal with it, he adds, his tone dismissive, as if brushing off the severity of the situation. He seems so detached, like always, but I catch a flicker of something in his eyes. Doesn't he understand how serious this could be? But before I can voice my concerns, he shifts the conversation. He moves towards me, his movements controlled, as if wary of disturbing the tranquility of the room. I sit up a little straighter, ignoring the twinge of pain from my injury. His presence, usually so commanding, now feels distant, almost as if there's an invisible barrier between us. He doesn't sit down. His gaze sweeps over me. How are you holding up? He asks, but it sounds more like a formality than genuine concern. I'll get better, I reply, my words carefully measured. I'm acutely aware of the complexity of emotions swirling within me, a mix of relief at seeing him and a deep-seated confusion about what transpired during the test. Staring intently at him, I begin to see past his mask. There's something else gnawing at him. His entire body betrays a simmering frustration, his shoulders tense with restraint. His deep brown eyes pierce me, filled with a restrained anger that threatens to erupt. Oh no, he's furious. Eva, what were you thinking, pulling the knife out? You're a mass of knowledge, and in a critical moment, you do something this foolish. His voice, though controlled, escapes through clenched teeth, like steam under pressure. The harshness of his tone hits me full force, leaving me stunned, my words stumbling over each other in a faltering attempt at justification. My voice is stronger, vibrating with raw emotion, almost shouting, as his accusation of stupidity exasperates me. It hurt. The knife was causing me pain. I wasn't thinking in that moment. His accusatory gaze ignites a reactive anger in me, a flame that rises. This isn't a situation I can navigate with your ease. I've never been hurt like this in my entire life. I can't react as if I was prepared for this, like you. In a breath that's lower, almost suffocated by the surrounding tension, he continues, if the blade had hit a major artery, you could have bled out, and I wouldn't have been able to do anything to help you. You always need to think before you act, Eva, not act on an impulse. His lack of sensitivity, his absence of understanding, increases the pressure in my veins. Well, I'm not a robot like you. He nods slowly, letting out a long sigh as if releasing pressure to avoid exploding. Flexing his fingers, I see him trying to release the accumulated tension, the contained aggression. He proceeds in a more controlled tone. Right. I just wanted to check on you and talk about training. His words are abrupt, almost clinical. Training? I echo, surprised. My mind reels at the thought of returning to our rigorous sessions. The memory of the test, the pain and fear still too fresh. Yeah, we need to start more intensive training, next Monday. Jack states, his voice devoid of any emotion. He talks about training as if nothing has happened, as if Taryn's death was just another test to overcome. Jack's next words strike a chord, resonating with a harsh truth. We need to train harder, he states, his voice firm. So you're not so helpless in situations like these. His blunt acknowledgement of my weakness stirs a flare of anger within me. It's a bitter pill to swallow, this admission of my vulnerability. Yet, deep down, I know he's right. My experience, my injury, they're glaring reminders of my limitations in this dangerous world. I can't help but feel a jolt of shock at his words. Is he not affected by what happened? Does he not see the gravity of it all? But I push these thoughts away, focusing instead on the determination that begins to simmer within me. I need to get stronger, better. All right, I reply, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. I'll be ready. Jack gives a slight nod, his eyes briefly meeting mine. There's a glint of something in them, approval maybe, or a challenge. It's hard to tell with Jack. He turns and walks away. My heart aches with the urge to call him back, to have him stay just a moment longer. But the words die in my throat. I watch him disappear, a storm of emotions raging within me. Confusion, longing, fear. This brief encounter with Jack has only added to the maze of feelings I'm trying to navigate. His coldness, his detachment, it all leaves me feeling more unsettled than ever. Lying back on the bed again, I stare at the ceiling, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The emotional distance Jack maintains is a barrier I can't seem to breach. I'm alone with my thoughts, my emotions a tangled web of fear, anger, and resolve. Jack's visit has left me with a renewed sense of purpose. Yes, I'm angry. Angry at my own weakness, at the brutal reality of our world, and even at Jack for forcing me to face these hard truths. But beneath that anger, there's a growing determination. I won't be helpless again. I'll train, I'll improve, and I'll be ready for whatever comes next. In the evening, I finally get out and back to my room. The night wraps around the facility like a heavy blanket. The window gives me a view of the outside world, close yet distant. My eyes, drawn by darkness, focus on a figure moving stealthily. It's Jack, his silhouette unmistakable, even from this distance. He's dressed casually tonight, his dark jacket and jeans mold to his athletic frame, giving him a rugged, almost carefree appearance. I crack open the window, allowing a cool breeze to slip through. He pauses at the doors of the facility's perimeter, where the shadows deepen. The hum of a motorcycle cuts through the night's stillness, breaking the silence that had settled over the area. Jade arrives, her presence unmistakable even from afar. She's perched confidently on the motorcycle. She exudes a sense of daring and adventure, her fitted leather jacket and dark jeans painting her as a goddess of the night. Her hair unmistakable, short and blue, a burst of color and life in the monochrome night, adds to her rebellious aura. I can't help but notice the ease in her posture, the way she seems so in tune with the world she inhabits. I watch from the shadows, a strange tension building in my chest as Jack approaches her and quickly plants a kiss on her lips. They exchange quiet words, their body language relaxed but intimate in a way that unsettles me. It's the natural flow between them, the way Jack leans in to whisper something that makes her laugh, that awakens a feeling within me I've never experienced. An emotion I had never truly felt begins to creep into my thoughts, unwanted yet undeniable. It's irrational, considering Jack and I are nothing more than training partners, but the sight of their closeness, ready to dive into the night together, ignites a fire inside me that strangely resembles desire. It's raw and unbidden, coloring my thoughts with shades of confusion and curiosity. The motorcycle's engine roars to life, a rumbling growl that echoes in the still air. They speed away, the sound fading into the distance, leaving me with a swirling mix of emotions. The air feels cold and sharp, carrying the smell of their departure that my imagination vividly brings to life. I stand still, feeling both an observer and an intruder in a world where Jack belongs. Questions whirl in my mind about their destination, the nature of their relationship, and what secrets Jack might be harboring in the hidden peripheries of the city. The training area feels different when I come back, just 5 days after the attack. My throbbing wounds are a constant reminder, a dull ache that pulses with every movement. I try to focus, but my mind is a whirlwind of emotions, all centered around Jack and the chaos of recent events. During the day's session with Sergeant Knox and Lieutenant Vega, I find myself faltering, my movements a half-beat slower, my responses tinged with hesitation. Vega's sharp gaze lands on me more than once, her expression a mix of concern and calculation. "Maybe it's too soon for you to be back," she comments, her tone more inquisitive than assertive. But it's the evening training with Jack that truly tests my resolve. The lights in the training area make everything intense. Jack's training approach is relentless, pushing me beyond what I thought my limits were. His kicks come at me with more force than before, each block sending a jolt of pain through my already bruised arms. I grit my teeth, trying to match his intensity, but it's clear he's operating on a different level tonight. His voice is hard, almost cold, as he urges me to strike back with more power. "Come on, Eva, harder," he commands, his eyes burning with a fierce determination. My muscles scream in protest, the throbbing of my wounds keeping time with my racing heart. Sweat trickles down my forehead, stinging my eyes, but I blink it away, refusing to show any sign of weakness. Jack's presence, so close and demanding, is both a torment and a driving force. "Come on, Eva, harder!" I hear again and again. "I will not give up," I whisper to myself, a silent mantra that fuels my every move. With each kick, each block, each gasp for air, I push back the shadows of doubt and fear that threaten to engulf me. The session leaves me exhausted, physically and emotionally drained. But beneath the fatigue, there's a flicker of something else, a stubborn pride. In the midst of this turbulence, I'm finding a strength I didn't know I had. As I collapse onto the mat, gasping for air, Jack stands over me, his expression unreadable. In that moment, the distance between us feels more than just physical. The turmoil within me is mirrored in his eyes, a storm of unspoken emotions. Is it my fear that he sees? Or is it a lack of fulfillment, a yearning for something more that I can't quite name? He wants more. He expects more from me, more than I am capable of giving. In stark contrast to Clara and Lieutenant Vega's concern for my well-being, Jack's training approach is unyielding. His relentless drive to push me further, to test my limits, is both infuriating and understandable. Each session is a battle, not just against my physical pain. I see his intent to forge strength from my pain, to build resilience from my vulnerability. But as the training intensifies, so does my resentment. With every kick and block, a part of me grows stronger, yet another part of me bristles against his tactics. He doesn't coddle me. He doesn't offer words of comfort or reassurance. Instead, he challenges me, his demeanor a mix of cold determination and an unspoken expectation that I rise to meet him. I hate it. I hate the way he pushes me, the way he seems indifferent to my pain. The air crackles with tension, a mixture of exhaustion, frustration, and the silent understanding that we are both battling our own demons. I'm left wondering about the cost of this strength he's helping me forge. How much can I endure before the physical and emotional toll becomes too great? In this dance of training and conflict, am I gaining strength, or am I losing a part of myself to the shadows? The third day of training marks a crescendo in intensity, pushing me to the brink. The stitched wounds are still fresh. Despite the pain, part of me is determined to prove my strength, not just to Jack, but to myself. He, for his part, continues to be indifferent to my discomfort, or perhaps chooses to ignore it. His goal is single-minded, an obsession to push me further, sharpen my skills, prepare me for the merciless reality of our world. Pinned to the ground for the umpteenth time, I feel the weight of his body on mine, a prison of flesh and bone. Logic tells me to pivot, to use my leg as a lever to push him away, but my muscles scream their exhaustion, each bruise a burning betrayal. Jack, I can't move. My voice is just a whisper. It hurts. I'm at the end of my strength. His gaze pierces through me, his eyes an ocean of anger. In a fight, you don't have a choice. Fatigue, pain, they'll always be there. But survival is about ignoring these voices. It hurts is just an illusion of your brain. Deny it that power, block that sensation in a corner of your mind. Each word from Jack is a blade cutting through my excuses, pushing me to fight against my own weakness. Jack's hand rests near my hip, where the knife's blade had pierced me a few days earlier. He presses. Pain explodes throughout my body. I scream, a primal, desperate sound. Tears blur my vision, turning the world to hell and fire. Above my scream, Jack's voice cuts through the air. "Move, get out of there now, Eva." He gives me no escape, his words echoing in my head. In that moment, I hate him, a deep, visceral hatred. But this hatred forges a new strength within me. I push the pain away, locking it in a dark corner of my mind. It's just a sensation, a parasite I refuse to host. "Move, Eva. Get yourself out of this." I command myself. With superhuman effort, I gather the shreds of my will. My muscles obey, trembling but determined. In a desperate push, I pivot, freeing my hip. My leg slips between us, and I draw from my last reserves of energy to overturn Jack. He topples, allowing me to regain my footing. I stand up, ready for combat. But the sensations in my body assail me, a wave threatening to overwhelm me. The fear of faltering grips me. Suddenly, the reality of my injury floods in. I collapse to the ground, a cry escaping my lips. It's a mix of pain and frustration. I inspect the wound under my t-shirt. The stitches have held, but every heartbeat throbs painfully in my battered flesh. "You're a crazy jerk!" I yell at Jack, my voice filled with powerless anger. He approaches, sitting down with an almost unreal slowness, a stark contrast to the intensity of our training. His eyes, usually so hard, so uncompromising, now carry an unusual softness. "Eva, in a fight, you'll take hits, you'll get hurt. But out there," he gestures tiredly towards the window, "your enemy won't stop. You can't just give up. Either you dominate your pain or you die." His voice is soft, almost a whisper. That's the cruel reality of our world. His fingers brush my cheek, tracing the path of dried tears, a gentle caress. In this simple gesture, this touch, I perceive not only the relentless instructor but also my partner behind the warrior. His words continue to hang in the air, a blend of hardness and care, pushing me to acknowledge the brutal reality of our world, but also the possibility of transcending my pain, of transforming myself into something stronger, more resilient. In this moment of shared vulnerability, an indefinable bond weaves between us, a complex mix of respect, challenge, and unspoken mutual understanding. The training area feels like a pressure cooker, the heat and tension radiating from my skin. We remain there in silence, me struggling to master the waves of pain assaulting my bruised body. Jack, for his part, remains still, his scrutinizing eyes fixed on me. I understand without a word that his silence isn't a lack of compassion, but a form of respect. He knows that it's in these moments of raw pain and inner struggle that true strength is forged. Of course, he's right. Outside these walls, the fight is not a test, but a matter of survival. A world Jack intimately knows, a world he has probably lived in since his childhood. Despite the overwhelming physical exhaustion, a sense of resolution starts to take hold. The pain, until now a devouring entity, transforms into a distant murmur, a background noise to my inflamed thoughts. A mix of frustration and curiosity intertwines within me. I stand up, a burning question on my lips, fueled by the images of his nocturnal escapades with Jade that haunt my mind. A mischievous smile creeps onto my lips. My eyes, narrowed into amused slits, focus on Jack. "You seem more tired lately, Jack. Too many sleepless nights?" My voice carries a hint of accusation tinged with a touch of teasing, and perhaps another, deeper and more indefinable feeling that I'm not ready to explore. Jack catches the shift in tone, a slight furrow of his brow betraying his surprise. He looks at me, trying to decipher the intention behind my words. In his gaze, I sense his vigilance returning, the mark of a man constantly on alert, even in these moments of supposed relaxation. He pauses, a slight smirk forming on his lips. "Do I seem slow during training? Because I assure you, I can speed things up." His tone is light, but there's a sting in his voice, a challenge that awakens something in me. "No, it's not about training," I insist, the words rushing out before I can stop them. "I've seen you with Jade, leaving at night. You're going back to those fights, aren't you?" I try to keep my voice steady, but there's an undeniable tremor of something more, perhaps more than curiosity. His smirk widens, a glint of mischief in his eyes. Does what I do with Jade bother you, Eva? Or do you just want to join us? We can certainly accommodate you." His words are provocative, sending my thoughts into a whirlwind of chaos. For a moment, I'm speechless. My thoughts a mix of shock and disbelief. My heart races a bit faster, echoing in my ears, an involuntary response to Jack's suggestion and the implicit challenge in his words. The air seems thicker, laden with the scent of sweat and the faint trace of his fragrance, a mix of citrus and something darker. I falter, my retort dying in my throat. "That's not it, but thanks." My voice weakens, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions or desire. God, I'm so lost. This very thought troubles me, revealing a desire I'm not ready to face. Jack's laughter breaks the tension, a sound that resonates deep within me, eliciting a reaction that confuses me even more. My body reacts involuntarily, a shiver running down my spine, mingling with the lingering heat and awakening something primal within me. It's a reaction that troubles me, a mix of irritation at his unrestrained attitude and an inexplicable attraction to the raw energy he exudes. Our conversation, if it can be called that, ends as abruptly as it began. He turns and walks away, leaving me standing there in a state of internal disarray. This constant struggle, both physical and emotional, has become the new norm of my existence. Each day, as I rise to face the challenges he presents, I wonder how much longer I can hold on. As the morning light filters through the cafeteria windows, Clara leans in close, her voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes dart around to ensure our conversation remains private. "I found out something about Jack," she says, her tone serious, laden with gravity. I pause, my spoon halfway to my mouth, my attention completely on her. "Spill it out?" I prompt, sensing the weight of what she's about to reveal. Clara bites her lip, clearly uncomfortable. "Calderon, that's not his birth name. He was adopted by the Calderon family. My parents either couldn't find or didn't want to reveal his original name. The Calderons are major players in finance and banking. They're not public figures, but they wield significant influence within the Consortium. My dad suspects that George Calderon, his adoptive father, is maneuvering to get a seat on the council." Clara's gaze meets mine, filled with a mix of concern and incredulity. There's more disturbing. His biological parents. They were leaders in the resistance in the American bloc. They were assassinated. My heart sinks. The revelation hits me like a physical blow, sending a shiver down my spine. Jack's parents? Leaders in a resistance movement? Assassinated? The implications are massive, painting a picture of a life steeped in rebellion and conflict. It all starts to make a sense, the skills, the secrecy, his deep-rooted cynicism. Clara continues, her voice dropping even lower. "There's not much known about them. Information hardly ever crosses the blocks. But their house, it was destroyed in an explosion. They said it was a gas leak, but..." She trails off, leaving the unsaid hanging heavily between us. The more Clara shares, the deeper the intrigue grows. She speaks of the North American bloc, led by a conglomerate focusing on information technology, defense, and media. A world where corporate power intertwines with government control, all under the guise of the Consortium's mandate for global stability. I'm left reeling, the spoon now forgotten in my hand. This piece of Jack's past, hidden from the world, changes everything. It explains so much, yet raises countless more questions. Each piece of new information adds weight to the mystery of who he truly is. Were the rebellious spirits of his biological parents, leaders of the resistance, alive within him? Is Jack involved in the resistance too? Is that what drives him? What shapes his every action? Or had his adoptive family, entrenched in their own covert agendas, shaped him into a tool for their financial and political maneuvers? The unsettling possibility looms that Jack might be operating as a spy within the underground, gathering sensitive information that his adoptive family could use to manipulate and exert influence over the council. The information from Clara, gleaned from her parents' connections, paints a vivid picture of a world far more complex and shadowy than the one taught in our classes. As I sit in the cafeteria, her words echo in my head. Jack's biological parents, leaders in the resistance, assassinated. It seems too dramatic, too fraught with implications. My mind races, trying to make sense of it. If Jack's tied to the resistance, wouldn't the police know? It defies logic. The police academy's stringent background checks, the Consortium's eyes and ears everywhere. How could someone with such a background slip through? I stir my coffee absent-mindedly, lost in thought. The idea that Jack could be connected to the resistance, yet training for the police force, feels like a puzzle where the pieces don't fit. His skills, his knowledge, they hint at something more than what we're taught here. And his nightly disappearances, are they just some escapades with Jade or something more? Gulping down the rest of my coffee, I make a decision. It's clear now, I can't continue looking him in the eyes without addressing the elephant in the room. I stand up, feeling a newfound resolve, steadying my shaky legs. My heart beats a rapid rhythm, echoing my racing thoughts. How will he react? Will he confide in me or retreat behind his walls of secrecy? The thought of confronting Jack about his past, about his biological parents and their connection to the resistance, it's daunting. I can't shake the fear of how he might react.
Did this story captivate you? Help this book find its place in the vast world of literature. Share your thoughts. Leave a review on Goodreads. Your support means everything. Link in the description. For just the price of a coffee, you can dive into the full audiobook and support my journey as an author. Every contribution truly means the world to me and keeps this adventure alive. The link to the audiobook on Kobo is in the description of this video. Thank you so much for your support.